And it's the same thing with software. You've got to in a very quick and precise manner grab the attention of the prospect. They're not even a lead yet. They're a prospect who somehow discovered you, whether it's by some digital content, whether it's through word of mouth, however, a trade show, whatever it is. So you need to deliver immediate value to that customer the minute they are aware of you. That could be in terms of something to learn something. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't recognize. Let me dig in more. So now from the awareness, the discovery and the awareness phase, you're now going into the learning phase very, very quickly to lead them towards an intent to purchase.
Welcome to the B2B Digital Marketer Podcast, a podcast helping you to end your struggle with digital marketing, helping you to pave a new and better path to target and capture your ideal customer. Each week, we teach you how insiders and experts debunk the dreary and become engines of innovation. Now, here's your host, Jim Rembach.
Okay, B2B DM gang, you're going to get ready for a great discussion and some interesting findings in regards to go-to-market strategies for specifically B2B high-ticket organizations. Because we have Philip Swan on the show with us today. Well, Philip, welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, Jim. Thank you for inviting me.
And now we're going to get some different perspectives on what different levels of an organization think about go-to-market strategy. How can we align those? Because this whole sales and marketing alignment thing is, quite frankly, something that will never end. And then we're also going to get an opportunity to talk about just the evolutionary aspects of go-to-market strategies and the different tactics that we have seen, some that are beneficial, some that are not so much, so that organizations can start getting, hopefully, as what we would call optimization and better transformation, and therefore results out of what they're doing from a go-to-market strategy. But before we do that, if you could share a little bit of background about you and your experiences before we get started. Thanks.
Sure. Well, thank you for that opportunity. And so my background, originally, I'm from Scotland, and I've been living in the States now longer than I ever lived in the UK. And my background is as an engineer. I started off life with math and computer science background, but always knew I wanted to get into business. So after 15 years of being an engineer, I moved into the business side, and I haven't looked back since. And I've always been on the leading edge, or as some people call the bleeding edge of technology for most of my career. In the early days, it was how to revolutionize telecommunications, and in early days of wireless. Through to voice over IP. I worked for a company that literally created voice over IP, and we got acquired by Texas Instruments. And then I went to Microsoft. And so I've worked both large and small organizations, from startups from zero revenue all up to my largest P&L is $3.5 billion in P&L that I've managed. And the principles that I found are the same, and that is focus on your customer. And I used to have a big sign in my office in Microsoft was laser focus on the customer. And it is about the customer's journey, and go-to-market for me is all about eliminating friction in every stage of the customer journey, from awareness through to intent, all the way through to advocating for your products. And so I'm a huge believer in taking care of your customer. I'm a huge believer in customer experience. And it's not how good your product is, but it's about how good it serves the customer and how does it keep the customer sticking with you for a long period of time. Because the old adage stays, it's cheaper to sell more to your existing customers than it is to acquire new customers. And you have to balance the two. So my background has really been focused on that.
Well, for me, I haven't had the opportunity to hear you respond, and talk about, the differentiating elements associated with, go-to-market and go-to-market strategies. But I'm excited personally about hearing the things that you had to say associated with customer and customer experience, because that's that's a particular place that I've been working in for, getting close to 3 decades now. We also look at it from, the whole prospecting element. If we start looking at the whole customer experience, prospect experience, it just totally changes our ability to, quite frankly, grow the business from, yes, the retention piece, but then also the growth piece. It's Correct. Just bringing all the two things together. So thank you for sharing that. All right. So you kind of, I think, gave your definition already of what is go-to-market and go-to-market strategy and the focus. But if I was to say, kind of generally speaking, look at a lot of different organizations, what would a senior sales leader talk about and therefore think about when we start saying, go-to-market strategy?
So first of the thing as a sales leader is forecasting the business and knowing your numbers and being able to work collaboratively with the people in marketing, especially the marketing leaders. Those silos, unfortunately, still exist today. And the challenge is really about how do you have common language and common understanding and transparency within the companies as to what's important to each of the leaders. Because I've lived in both roles, both in terms of marketing and also in sales. My primary focus has been on growth and on sales. And the thing that I look for is, how do I put more prospects into the pipeline? And how do we drive qualified prospects into the pipeline? And how do we bring process, not for the sake of bureaucracy, but process for the sake of scale that you can actually rinse and repeat without having to add an extraordinary amount of staff to actually handle, whether you're selling a SaaS product, doing with your business development reps and your sales development reps before they get to account managers, to really, it's really about making it easy for customers to find you, customers to talk to you, and customers to engage with you, and customers to buy from you and keep buying from you, and then ultimately recommend you to 6 of their favorite cohorts. And we'll get into what I mean by that and the viral nature of what I look for in scaling. And it's, the problem with many technology companies is like they have a great idea, but they haven't actually figured out, is it actually a problem that enough customers recognize is a problem for them? And are you solving it in a way that is compelling to them to have it solved?
So I've heard some people talk about that being a fundamental marketplace problem. They'll talk about an FMP. And if you start talking about that, we want to find an FMP that has a well recognized, it's well recognized, and it also has major impact. And if I think about solutions, I want to go after that if I'm an organization that wants to be of significant size and scale, instead of hitting some niche type of, problem and trying to get people to prioritize a niche problem that maybe a one-off and have. And do you think that there's place for both of those types of organizations when you start talking about go-to-marketing strategies, or that we all should be trying to go after those fundamental marketplace problems?
Well, Jim, I would actually go back to what kind of business are you actually trying to build? Are you trying to build a lifestyle business, or are you trying to build a business for scale? And I think there's and if you're doing more of a lifestyle business, I think it's more of what you were talking about earlier, but you just keep things ticking along and you're happy with it. So that's a solopreneur or just a small company. But when you're but I'm built for scale, as I like to say. And when people ask me what I do for a living, I say I'm in the friction elimination business. And it's both friction internally, removing friction internally, and removing friction for the customer. And really ensuring that the entire team, I believe in small teams and small pods. The word innovation is used quite liberally these days, but to me, innovation means is change, is programmatic. It's not some random throw the spaghetti against the wall and let's see what sticks. It's actually programmatic and actually process behind it to actually drive innovation, both internally to the team, but to the benefit of the customer. And so the question really is to that fundamental problem that you're talking about. is this a big enough problem? So that's where I look at, if the total addressable market is anything less than $1 billion, I'm not interested. And I mean that quite sincerely, because it means that I can't scale, right? And there's nothing wrong with going after a total or TAM or total addressable market less than $1 billion, but you're building more of a lifestyle type of a business than you are building for scale, in my opinion. And it's been my experience. Because VCs, if you're a startup going after VCs have heard, oh, we'll get 2% of this size of this market. And nobody believes that. What VCs want to hear is how you've actually done your thought process to analyze the actual obtainable market that you can get, right? So you've got your TAM, you've got your service addressable market, and your serviceable obtainable market. And that's the number you really want to focus in on. Is it large enough that you can build a solid, profitable business on, and then extend your reach? Because I'm huge into extending reaches of your existing products and services without anything more than repackaging to go after a new market that you would be tailor-made for.
Well, that puts things in a whole different perspective. I mean, because when you start essentially, to me, what I refer to as retrospective engineering it, I'm looking at, well, what's my, ultimate end in mind, and let's work backward from there to see by what frameworks and processes and strategies and tactics and methods that we have to put in place in order to get there.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So you talked, and I asked the question about the sales leader and how they would actually talk about, go-to-market strategy. And you did, to me, start also expanding into some of the marketing elements. So let's just put the senior marketing leader hat on. What would a senior marketing leader say about go-to-market strategies?
So the first thing is the senior marketing leader that we should be asking is, do I have the processes and the discipline inside my marketing team to scale this for a go-to-market strategy? Because many marketing organizations do not. That's been my experience. Building, new CMOs come on to companies all the time, chief marketing officers, and they inherit the sins of their predecessor. They have a little bit of honeymoon period, but it's got to be very quick into delivering results. And that pressure is intense. So the question is, where do you focus as a senior marketing leader? The first thing you've got to focus on, in my opinion, is working with the sales leadership to understand what the business objectives are and align on the strategies that need to happen. And it's not just one strategy, it's multiple strategies, everything from your digital marketing strategy and content strategy to your social strategy, to your event strategy, to your webinar strategy, to list goes on and on and on and on. And where do you get your biggest bang for your buck? Because it's one thing to be just, you've got to be open to change. You've got to be open to flexibility. So your processes have to allow you to do that. But when you bring people on board onto your team, you want to have an infrastructure that they just slip in. These are the objectives. And a good thing to measure this is through OKRs, or objectives by key results. And where you're having like 2 bi-weekly or monthly or quarterly, whatever frequency those are being measured on, that you're seeing the process. So having that trickle down, the sales and marketing leaders align, and having those trickle down each of the organizations to understand, and where they meet is actually on lead scoring. And that's an important factor a lot of people miss, is having an effective lead scoring mechanism, so you don't have this pointing fingers at each other going, well, marketing's not giving me enough leads, and me and marketing going like, we're giving you all these leads, but you're not calling down on them, because there's no SLA or service level agreement between marketing and sales saying that if you have an A1 lead coming in, that person's getting called within 30 minutes. And that's actually a benchmark that I use. And so it's really important, and lead scoring is different for B2B as it is for B2C or D2C. So you've got to get the right lead scoring architecture in place. And most CRM systems have that today. So you don't actually have to do the engineering of it. You just have to define it.
Well, the execution piece can start being a problem when we start talking about the actual distribution of leads and all of these. That's getting into the minutia. But I think when you're talking about something that's critically important for us to address in regards to innovation, we look at that through a few different lenses that I think are important for us to point out. So there was a study that came out, I think it was a Salesforce study that said 91% of CMOs stated that they must continually innovate in order to not just stay afloat, I mean, in order to survive. So it's the continual innovation. Now, but here's my question. Who determines what is innovation? Because oftentimes what I see is that the innovation that they're talking about has to do with all those levers that you're referring to and pulling this one and pulling that one. And maybe it has to do with some, platform integration or new revolutionary thing internally that helps with a process or procedure. But I'm like, has anybody asked the customer what they think innovation is in regards to marketing? Because to me, that's the one I want to put my money in.
Bingo. You're absolutely spot on. You've got to go down to what I call bare metal or fundamental truth. So bare metal is you cannot get down any lower. So this is the problem you're trying to solve. And you have to talk to customers. You have to get FaceTime with your customers to hear what problems they have in their lives, what problems in their professional lives that you can solve if it's a B2B. Remember that same person who's buying your B2B product is also buying a gift for his or her spouse or that same day. So they're also consumers. So really understanding the pain points. Are you going to save them time? Are you going to save them money? Are you going to increase productivity? Are you going to, what problem do they have? Is it that you are solving? And they go like, oh my gosh, if you solve this for me, I'll buy this, right? And I'll buy it in volume, or I'll buy it in the scale, which then addresses opens up another Pandora's box of, how do you price this? But we're not talking about that here right now. And but you're really understanding what the customer is. So having senior marketing leadership, senior product leadership, and senior sales leadership all in the same room to really talk to those same customers and hear what the customers are saying. Those can come from direct interviews, by polling, by focus groups. You don't have to spend a lot of money to go and do this. And you know what? Your customers will tell you. If you ask them, they will tell you. They are happy to tell you because they want help to solve the problem. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I would even add on to it because for me, when I think about some of that insight gathering, because I worked for a consumer scientist that measured the customer experience for over 15 years, and I was groomed in a lot of different ways of thinking associated with customer and customer impact and customer interpretation, survey methodologies, and all those types of things that, to me, it was just very priceless in a lot of ways. So, for example, she had talked about a survey. She said, I'm a professional survey taker because I actually helped to design these things. And we measure the customer experience. It's primarily in customer care types of operations. But she said, I took a survey this morning for the hotel I was staying in. She goes, I just dumbfounds me when I look at some of the questions they asked. So, for example, there was a question that was asking me about the pool. And the question was I happy with the size of the pool? And I'm like, well, are you going to change it? It's like, why would you even ask that question?
That's right.
So when you start thinking about even some of the questions and the information that I want to gather, from my customers, there's many pieces of information that we fail to capture.
Oh, Jim, you're just hitting on such a hot button.
I'll tell you, and I'll give you one. That person who made the decision to put your product in is more worried about their reputation and their well-being more than they are on whatever ROI you're going to give them. Hello.
Exactly.
It's that important. It's a personal. And we often think that, well, I got to give them the financial impacts and the return, and that's secondary. The fact is if I put this in, is it going to ruin me or is it going to help me? And I mean that from a personal reputation perspective, as well as from a business performance perspective. And we just don't capture that.
You're absolutely right.
Oftentimes we just capture information from people who've already purchased from us. That's a problem. So, okay, maybe I can't get access to the people who didn't buy, but you know what I should be asking those people that bought? When you're getting ready to make that final decision, what almost stopped you? That information is priceless.
That's friction right there.
Right there.
Right there.
I was worried about, boom, what? And then you need to dig for the personal elements. Were you worried that was going to come back and bite you? You know, those types of things that we miss. And so that's why for me, you kind of set me up too, talking about how you explain what go-to-market strategy is, and then it's all about the customer. Our ability to capture customer insight has such great opportunity. It's not even funny.
I feel like we've lost the art of asking questions in many ways, right? Because, there's a lot of cognitive bias that goes into questioning. And I really work hard with my clients and to eliminate, as much bias as possible, cognitive bias as possible. And you want to leave the questions to be ambiguous. And you want to actually stop talking and just listen to let the customer talk, and just leave the golden silence there to let them talk and give you insights, because you will not get those insights from anything else other than talking to customers. And innovation is just another fancy word for change, as I said earlier. And the lowest common denominator in terms of currency for change is a conversation. It really is. And because one, asking questions to understand what you need to actually build or deploy or package, and for your customers to feel like they've been heard and listened to and appreciated, and going like, it's like, I actually had something to do with company X doing XYZ, right? And and they have pride and ownership on that. And I know pride is seen as one of the deadly sins, but it's actually an important part, because it's like, people need to feel good about what they're doing. And especially customers need to feel good. Not that friction point. It's like, what held me back from buying that house? What held me back from buying that $1 million piece of software? What held me back from buying the vehicle? Whatever the large ticket item is. And you've got to get to that friction point, as you said earlier, and eliminate that friction and just make it a no-brainer for them, which is why in the world of SaaS, why more SaaS companies are not offering guarantees is just incredible to me, because guarantees are absolutely critical component of any SaaS deployment. Because if my product doesn't work, I don't want to be part of your organization. I don't want to take your money if I'm not delivering value.
I think we're going to see more and more of that change. And that's kind of, I guess you'd say we kind of dabbled in that with the whole free trial thing. But when we're starting to talk about enterprise solutions, that typically doesn't exist, right? So we're going to have a proof of concept. I mean, okay. So I think when we look at this particular, go-to-market strategy, go-to-market tactics, go-to-market frameworks, we can sit here all day long and talk theory. We can sit here and talk all day long about aspirations and things to avoid. But if you could kind of help us, with a journey or a walkthrough or a framework, so that we can kind of put some structure into it and drive some changes.
Sure. So the first one is equate it to like going to the airport when you're traveling. And in the US, you've got Hudson's bookstores in all of the airports. And when you go there to go and buy your book, if you're not using, an online source, what's the first thing you do? You open up the cover. And does the picture of the author appeal to me? Does the actual content appeal to me? If it is, I'll pick the book up and I'll buy it and I'll read it on the plane. And it's the same thing with software. You've got to in a very quick and precise manner grab the attention of the prospect. They're not even a lead yet. They're a prospect who somehow discovered you, whether it's by some digital content, whether it's through word of mouth, however, a trade show, whatever it is. So you need to deliver immediate value to that customer the minute they are aware of you. That could be in terms of something to learn something. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't recognize. Let me dig in more. So now from the awareness, the discovery and the awareness phase, you're now going into the learning phase very, very quickly to lead them towards an intent to purchase, because you want to make that as short as possible. Now, clearly, a $20 book is different from selling a $1 million piece of software, right? Because you've got you can't just make an instant purchase on that. But can you shorten your sales cycle on these large ticket items from 18 months to 3 or 4 months for a large enterprise sale? If you can do that, you have got a winning proposition, because I don't think you can get a brand new customer in the enterprise sales in less than 4 months. Very often they do happen, but it's not very, because you've got all these massive contracts to negotiate, right? It's just a process you have to go through. Whereas so you've got at each stage, you want to make it easy. You don't want to let the customer any opportunity to say no, because I call it the circular firing squad, right? Because we did it to ourselves, right? And and it's just because an accountant says, well, you need to have this. Well, is it because of regulatory, or is it in compliance, or is it because this is what you want to do? Because if it's just because what you want to do and that's creating friction, we ain't going to do it, right? And you have to have the courage and the conviction at every part of the organization, to eliminate that friction, because that's how you retain customers. It's that experience. It's like, oh, they were just so easy to deal with, right? It was just, and it was, yes, we had some challenges in getting this negotiated, but you know what? We were all on the same side, and we figured it out. Where there is a will, there is a way. And, this is where, from a professional, revenue guy like myself, is I'm continually developing those relationships to understand in advance where are the potential pitfalls that could trip us up as we get close to finish. Because I can't tell you how many times I've seen with other companies where the customer says yes, they're going to buy, but because of some bureaucracy internal to the company, the selling company, they've made it difficult to buy, and the customer said, you know what, this is just too difficult, I'm going away. And that is clutching defeat out of the jaws of victory. There's nothing more debilitating to a salesperson than going like, oh my God, you had to do this, didn't you? And so we've lost the customer, or it's extended my sales cycle by another 3 months, and my competitors now in where I didn't have competitors before. I've now got a competitor in here, and I'm now doing double the work to try and get the same sale when this could have been closed 3 months ago.
As you're talking, I had the opportunity to be part of a conversation where within a lot of those parts of the journey that you were referring to, they were talking about some of the psychological needs that we kind of hit on, talking about the whole reputation and things like that. As far as the buy decision, yes, it is always emotional. It always will be emotional.
Correct.
Anybody says that, hey, business is business and it's just business, is unskilled, period. Is they started talking about, in order for you to differentiate yourself from everyone else, is you have to build your skills and abilities as what they talked about being unconsidered needs that your prospect or your lead may have. And that you have to continually differentiate yourself by addressing those unconsidered needs in order for you to stand out as a thought leader and to build that trust factor that's critically important when you have such a high stakes sale. So when you start talking about go-to-market strategy and unconsidered needs, how does that fit in within the flow process?
It totally fits in, and it really fits in. So we can talk about the sales side first, because that's where the direct relationship with the customer happens, right? Because you've got a salesperson or team, whatever, interacting with the customer. And I'll go back to something you said. Is every purchase is emotional, no matter whether it's, I don't care what it is, whether it's a pen or something, there is an emotional component to it. And so I always say that people think with their heads, but buy from their hearts. You've got to appeal to the heart. So in my early days, when I stopped being an engineer and went into sales, I did what was called consultative selling. I would consult with them, not about my product, but about their problems, just to your point. And it's just like meeting their needs. Oh, no, you need to talk to company XYZ about this. And I was giving them more value based on my industry knowledge than buy my product. So when it came to the time to purchase my product, it was a no-brainer. People buy from people they like, period. And it's, if you're delivering those unmet needs, right, whether it's referring them to other people in the industry, or, you know, oh my gosh, I'm looking for somebody who an expert in this. And say, oh, I know, you know, somebody, I know Jim, and Jim is a great person on this. You should talk to Jim. You're not building trust and that emotional connection with your customer that they're never going to leave you.
Well, I want to add on to what you just said. You know, you said, you know, that people buy from people they like, but here's the important thing underneath that how do you execute that? And the fact is that people like you when they know you like them.
Yeah.
How do they get an idea of you knowing that you like them? Because you help them with their unmet and unconsidered needs.
Correct.
So it's like, okay, how do you execute this? Right?
Yeah.
That's how you execute it.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I don't, you know, I feel sad today and a little bit, and some, you know, in that we've lost some of these skills because we're, you know, between COVID, between the advent of, you know, people wanting to do everything online versus actually sitting down and having a cup of coffee with somebody, if that's your drink of choice, or lunch, or just something where you're actually looking into the person's whites of their eyes. I like this person. I want to be around this person, right? And it's, you know, those unmet needs are really, really a critical component for it, especially, and I don't care whether you're selling enterprise, small business, or consumer. It's, you know, it's whether you like, and when it comes to consumers, whether you like the brand, and where the people fit into that is 50% of every brand is the culture and the organization of the company itself, because your biggest brand ambassadors should be your employees. And so when I work in a marketing capacity with companies, I focus on the culture first. Do you have the culture set up? And it's not just talk, it's the walk.
Well, and as you're sitting there and we're talking about all these humanity-based things. And then what we often find is, from a technology perspective, it tries to be addressed, like especially in marketing and go-to-market and sales, we talk about personalization.
Yeah.
Personalization is not what we're talking about here. Personalization and using somebody's name and knowing the responsibilities of their job within the organization, and they're giving them the right content. That's not what we're talking about here. This is a much deeper level than the superficial. That's actually helps with the conversions to an nth degree, by far. People's favorite subject. So my ICP, my target, my prospect, their favorite subject is what? Them.
That's right.
Feed it. And that's what we need to do. So, okay. So I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this whole alignment piece. I'm looking at, processes, procedures, practices, resources, and staffing. I'm looking at all these different levers that are being pulled. And then we have this monumental shift and change that happens in regards to technology. So when I start thinking about AI, when I start thinking about just overall business automation, when I start looking at tech stack, I think there was a report that said over the past 3 years, the marketing tech stack solutions have more than doubled every year.
Correct.
Holy smokes. The decisions are getting much harder. The complexity is increasing at an ever-increasing rate. Where is this really going in regards to AI and tech in regards to go-to-market? Because I even have seen go-to-market solutions and tools that are now AI infused, and you can actually manage your go-to-market strategy with them.
So where I personally use it, so AI is not a new thing, right? When I went to university in the early 80s, sorry, I'm aging myself now, AI was the thing then. I was an engineer and we programmed in a language called Lisp. We just didn't have the program power. It goes back to my hero in computer science, Alan Turing, where you had the Turing test back in the late 40s, early 50s. And, so this is not a new thing. What has changed is the copious amounts of data that you need. AI is a data-driven juggernaut, right? So the more data you have, the better your solution is going to be. And so where AI started to become, you've heard things like RPA, remote process automation. That was really something, where started off with, scraping and everything else that went into gathering the data. Where I use AI and where I see the benefits of AI is eliminating a majority of my manual tasks, up to 80% of my manual tasks. Now, let's put yourself in the day of a salesperson, right? So let's talk real specifics. What is the worst thing a salesperson is worst at or not good at? It's time management. Salespeople are across the board not good at this. And so that's why, so much bureaucracy and administration, 40+% of their job is doing admin work, whether it's keeping up CRM up to date, whether it's doing expense reports, writing documents. It's they're not actually doing what you hired them for, which is to actually sell stuff to customers. And so the way I see AI developing for salespeople is to eliminate some of these drudgery tasks that still need to get done for them, but do what they are good at, what their superpower is, what you hired them for, which is to sell, which is to form those relationships with customers and sell. Have got their bag of tricks that they go out on the road with. And they can start, and AI will help them doing that with time management. It will help them because it already is available. It will help them with constructing their emails that need to go out to customers. There's plenty of companies out there that are doing, that sales automation. Companies like Outreach and SalesLoft and Gong and all of those companies out there. And so there's a plethora of those, and those are advancing by the week, by the month, like crazy. And in marketing, where I see that, and it's going to be the same thing, is how do you maintain copyright and use generative AI to generate content for you in the way that is impactful for the customer? So learning how to do the prompt engineering, which is becoming easier by the day because there are plenty of tools that are coming out now. You could suddenly have a staff of 8 people around you being run by AI, and there's no humans in there, and you're just focused on getting your job done, and you can just trust the AI to do this. So I see AI being a help, not a hindrance, in terms of optimizing a salesperson's time and a marketer's time in terms of driving the right content, the right connection at the right time. Because remember, sales is about landing the right person at the right time when they have the need, right? So it's like having when you started dating your wife, it was, the time was right? It was, and so the time has to be right to talk to that person at the right level, that they now become your advocate, that they are placing their big bet of their career on you personally, not just your company. That's something you brought up earlier. And AI will free good salespeople up to go and do that, and good marketers up to actually come up with the right strategies that they can differentiate themselves above the fray of a very noisy market where there are lots of competitors.
Okay, so to me, as you were answering that, and I'm thinking about go-to-market type of technologies, you're actually going across and looking at it from all different aspects of the essentially customer interacting or insight types of technologies that the overall organization has. So is it that from a technology perspective, it's kind of forcing us to be a little bit more siloed because they're not working well amongst, if you think about it from, sales, marketing, prospecting, customer success, customer service. I mean, is that really what our problem is?
I think that's actually part of the problem because the silos do exist. And I've been working hard over the last several years to eliminate those silos, right? And I've been a proponent, not just about having a chief marketing officer or a chief revenue officer, but is there a chief go-to-market officer that spans between marketing and sales, that there's that, where that focus on the customer and eliminating friction for that customer is owned by one person across the entire organization. And that person works really, really closely hand in hand with the chief product officer to ensure that they've got you've got the right roadmap, you've got the right functionality, you've got the right customer experience, which includes user experience coming out of the product. And I have a benchmark that I use, and the benchmark that I use is how quickly is it, from the minute the person installs the product or activates the product, are they deriving value? And if your answer is anything more than 2 minutes, you got a problem, Houston.
Okay, so as you're saying that, so there is customer experience officers in organizations that are supposed to do some of the things that you're referring to across all of those different parts of the organization. But oftentimes it appears that they get stuck in doing is some things that are just associated with, customer research, customer intelligence, the whole type of measurement piece, instead of getting into the whole customer experience transformation. And then this has been going on for years, this fight. So one of the studies, it was actually a report that was from a particular study that was talking about this alignment piece with the CMO and CEO specifically. What is the role of marketing? What are they, badged to do, and making sure that alignment piece comes into play? Is they started talking about people that are in the CEO role and what their background and bias would be towards. So in other words, I came up through the ranks and I was in the sales department, right? I came up through sales. I came up through, being the finance office. I was the CFO. Now I'm the CEO. And you don't find many people that are in C-level roles that came from, customer service, that came from customer experience, that came from marketing, quite frankly, for that matter. And they were stating how that actually is contributing significantly to this ongoing siloing of organizations and their inability to do what you're talking about. So again, we can sit here and talk about theory all day long and what should happen. How do I fix it in where I am right now if I'm a senior, sales or marketing leader?
So from my perspective, it starts at the board level, and because what's the board's single role, right? They've really got multiple roles, but one is to protect the interests of the investors, number one, but it's also to hire and fire the CEO. And so board members themselves have to be educated enough as to because they're in effect approving the business objectives, right? And they are the ones signing off on this. So they need to be working with, bringing on CEOs up through the ranks who, if the focus is growth, having a CEO who is growth minded, not a number cruncher. Numbers are important. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to diminish that in any way whatsoever. But Steve Jobs used to say, if you don't cannibalize yourself, somebody else is going to do it for you. So the reason I'm bringing this up is that you want a CEO who's always looking at ways that they can disrupt their current customer lines and keep the revenue for themselves so they can expand into these markets. And a company that did this really, really well was Concur. And they had gone, when they went public, they were over $1 billion valuation. I think at one point they were over $10 billion, if I recall correctly. And then a couple of years later, they were about to get delisted, and their market cap was like $10 million, not with a B, with an M. And they had to reinvent themselves for a fourth time. And a few years later, they got acquired for $8.3 billion by SAP. And so that came through a CEO who recognized the problem and brought people in. This is not my way, it is our way, and building the culture up. So it goes back to culture. It's, Lee Iacocca did it with, with Chrysler back in the day. Chrysler was almost out of business, and he turned that company around. And he did it by making people believe this is the path out of this mess that we're in, or this chaos, right? So chaos is a good thing. And chaos is a good thing when you can harness it. And I'm talking to the customers and understanding how we solve a customer problem in a way that they want to get solved. And everybody comes together on this to disrupt the industry and disrupt ourselves. And so it really starts with the board, a CEO who really understands what his or her superpowers are and where my weaknesses are, and having the people around as a team that are solving the problem, and not in some large organizational way. You can do these in small pods and you disrupt.
Well, it's been a very, very valuable discussion. A lot of good insights shared. And I'm looking forward to continuing our discussion off mic. But before we do that, Philip Swan, could you please share with the B2B DM gang how they can get in touch with you?
So they can get in touch with me at my email is Philip with 2 L's at philipswan.com. Feel free to sign up for my go-to-market emails. I give daily insights. Jim, I know you're a subscriber of that, so thank you for that. Go to my website, philipswan.com, and you can sign up for my emails there.
Philip Swan, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you, Jim. It's been an honor.
Thank you for joining us. Go now to join the B2B DM gang in the B2B Marketer LinkedIn group, where you can connect with other B2B DM disruptors and get access to our B2B DM cheat sheets, checklist, and guides. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, please help by going to iTunes to rate, review, and subscribe. And share the show on all of your digital platforms. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode. And always remember, you can automate your lead capture, but you must lure your lead.